If that's not fucking anarchy, this is!
A little more of our somewhat truncated Canada's Cup 2011 coverage with On the Water Anarchy. I'm here with Bob Hughes, the defender now, and defender before, but kind of then not defender for a little while of the Canada's Cup. Right, Bob? How are you, bro?
I'm good. Yeah, it gets a little bit confusing when you go back to some of the unexpected events of last year, but now we've had a great cup with some trials, which we haven't had, and quite a few cups, so that's a great sign for the event, and now we're getting ready for the real thing.
So we'll go into sort of a little history in a minute, but long story short, 2010 was a weird year. At the end of the day, 2011 for, I think, really the first real Canada's Cup since you guys won it from the Royal Canadians in Toronto in 2007. You have a defender trial, and now you're facing off against an Olympic medalist and a great crew from now the Royal Canadian Yacht Club. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely correct. And they've been here for about 2 weeks, so they're fully vested in the area and practice well. And the boat's a World Championship boat. So
that's the boat Alinghi won with in 08 or 09. Right?
Yeah, actually Warwick, who's on our boat, spent some time on that boat, and he knows it's a good boat, and they've done everything possible to it to make her fast. I think it's been owned by 3 billionaires. So,
and each of them raced one regatta on it.
Yeah, something like that. Good ROI.
Bob, what's it? I mean, you know, I know that when you went to Toronto, you obviously had a great team and a great crew. You've obviously stepped it up and on the notch here. I know, you had a B boat with Ed Baird driving against you guys, full of pros. You've got some of the best in the world: Warwick Fleury, Willem Van Wey, Morgan Larson, your tactician, and you spanked Don Wilson here last weekend in the trials. What's it been like racing with these guys? What's it done for your sailing?
It's done a lot. This has been a long range thing. I mean, the Cup it's not just a normal match race event. It should happen every 3 or 4 years, and it should be special. And we've had some good efforts, the best efforts we could have had before. The very first one in 201 had a great partner with Wally Suha, and the other two, the first one...
Saturn out of Bayview, yes. Right?
Yep. And then in 2003, we went up there and just lost 7-5. It's kind of going through a divorce and a bad time, and the boat was faster, the crew was great. It was kind of my fault. I think I did some bad job on the starting line. And then 07, by a hair, you were there, and that all worked out. But when we did all these, the whole goal was to get it here to West Michigan because we thought it's a great place to sail. We thought it had never been here. The people would be enthusiastic about it, and the club could put on a special event. But the defense, once you get it here, you sure as heck don't want to lose it. So compared to our other efforts, we had chartered a 40 to practice against in the past and brought in Spithill and Jess Graham Hansen and others. But this time we spent 9 to 14 days scrimmaging against Ed Baird with a team full of pros on my old boat. And then I did a bunch of match racing over the winter, a couple of other events.
You won a few?
Yeah, and won a couple, and that was really good. So our preparation and having guys like Warwick, and I've sailed against Morgan forever, and there was a lot of debate on who we were going to get as a tactician because of availability to people and the commitment. And once I heard Morgan was available, I was like, I'm sick of losing to that guy. But the best thing was getting him on board. He's just got that innate ability with the breeze that a few people have, but also his demeanor and personality. He's
been on 3 Cup teams, yes. and that level of professionalism, I think, percolates throughout a team, right?
It sure. I mean, this thing, Tom Giesler and Mark and Brian have the whole boat incredibly well organized. The sails are great, and the team on the water. I mean, you have Warwick 4 Cup sitting on your right, Morgan behind you, Willem trimming, Doogie on the bow, and then 5 West Michigan guys. It's not every day you get to steer a boat with that type of preparation and those kind of people on board.
Willem told me that he thought this was amongst the very best prepared and sailing at the time 440s he's ever sailed on, and that's a pretty big call from a double world champion.
Yeah, and I've been on the 440s now for 10 years. Every time we finished last, and we're like, guys, we need to take this team and boat to the Worlds in Chicago. It's an amazing boat because it's newer and it's stiff.
That's next year in Chicago, right?
Yes, it's in Chicago next year, and we don't know what's going to happen with that. But just you feel the boat and the team. The team is spot on. The boat's good, and
that's one you've never won. You won Key West, you've won Miami, but you've never won.
Americans a couple of years in Chicago, but the Worlds is the one thing that.
And Chicago, one of the big fleets in America right now. 9 boats at the Verve last weekend.
Yep. And I think even the Mac race might be fun next year. There'll probably be 12 or 13 doing that, but that's for another day. And we're really excited about tomorrow because there's a good forecast for lots of breeze.
It is 25 to 30.
Yes. Yeah, and hopefully they got
with big waves southwest.
Love that. They got a wind limit of 22, which I wish was a little bit higher.
What is this, the Little America's Cup?
I don't know how. I know we had nothing to do with that. That's all I'll say. But anyways, tomorrow should be an exciting day.
Let me ask you this one. You know, I had thought that it was Grant, and I just met Grant, super nice guy, but I thought it was Grant the whole way. But then a few months ago, there was a change, and it became, instead of Port Credit, it was Royal Canadian, and now you have, I don't even remember the helmsman that you're sailing against. But what's up with all that? I mean, was that expected, or?
You know, the first thing is that this event, once we won the Cup, you would think the Canadians would want it back.
Right.
But nothing happens the way it's written unless they issue a challenge and want to get it back. And so Grant's the key guy, because you need to find somebody that's motivated.
Find a Canadian that wants the Cup.
That wants to put in a big effort.
I grew up looking at the Canada's Cup like you did.
So when Grant showed up on the scene, we were like ecstatic. So he's been great. Obviously, that wasn't his fault what happened last year. We weren't excited about that event, but being part of this event and making this happen, it wouldn't happen without him. Didn't know about the change in helmsman until just a while ago, but it doesn't matter. It's all within the rules, and that's all good.
It's the FAR 40 rules.
Yeah, I didn't even pay attention to it. They just told me that Oscar was driving, so that's good. We like that, and our preparation. Great friend is Doug DeVos, and he's helped. A lot of guys have helped support the campaign at a certain level in the previous 3 Cups that I did. But he said, "Hey, Bob, this year, you've put so much effort into getting it here. We want to help you out as much as possible." And it was just like, when we first started having that conversation, hey, great, we got some help. And the next thing you know, we got this Quantum Speed team helping a lot. Doug's been incredibly generous.
I remember the last one, you mean, like part of raising money and keeping your business afloat, and it's been a huge concern. So having the DeVos family step in has to help you out a lot.
Oh, you can't.
Stress off your shoulder.
We would have had a very good defense, but it wouldn't be anything like this. I mean, he's made a great effort possible, and it's been organizing. When you run your own program, you have to do so many other things. You're distracted with the details of where you're staying, people, all this stuff. This, you have so much less to worry about because there's such good people taking everything. You just focus on the sailing, and I know that's made a difference.
So let's go fast forward now. Let's say you win this thing. You and I have talked for years now about some really cool things that this Cup could become. The history's there, the heritage there, the fan base is there, the sponsors are probably there in the area. So what's your vision for a 10-year plan for the Canada's Cup?
A couple things. Obviously, this has been, I was just talking to John Barber from Bayview. He goes, like 2 days from, it was like 2 days from now it'll be 10-year anniversary. Yeah. Always remember the first one because 9/11 happened. But Macatawa is doing an amazing thing. I think they're showing off this part of the world.
And it's a gorgeous place.
We had people on the boat from New Zealand, California, were coming in the other day when everybody cheering on the side say, "What a great place to have this."
They go. We had no idea.
Yeah, and to have them say that, and this is Michigan, it's awesome. But the club has done some other great things, like we said, and this is not Cup history in the past. If you come and beat Macatawa Bay in the trials, and then you beat the Canadians, the Cup goes with you. You're not sailing for Macatawa Bay. That's trying to promote the sport because you get a lot more teams come in on the trials if they can take the Cup with them.
There's less motivation if they win it for you and it sits in your clubhouse, right?
Exactly. So, but the future, I think it's a special event. It should happen every 2, 3, 4 years. That's somewhere in there, open for debate there. It's not an annual event. It's not a short track match racing, event. There's tons of those out there. Those are great events. I love doing those. We did those this winter. But this is special. It's a program event, and it should be a marquee event where people look up to, and you need to have plenty of warnings so teams have a proper time to get organized and plan for it. The boat is always, the 2 things I think are holding it back are you have to have a Canadian in there for it to happen. Right. Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure on them.
Sure.
I personally, and it's just Bob's opinion, is that have it like an America's Cup. Whoever wins it, anybody can challenge them, whether they're American or whether they're Canadian, and then the event will happen more often. I think the Cup's worth more.
Do you think the Royal Canadian would ever agree to that?
Probably not, but
they're a tough crowd. Those guys. They won't answer your questions.
No.
I mean, I know this, and I have great friends up there, but they don't. They're not big on progressive sort of thinking. I think is how I'd put it.
They have a lot of history attachment, their names on it, but I think the trophy becomes even more meaningful and valuable if it's competed for every 2 or 3 years, and in some year it might be U.S. against U.S. Some year it could be Canada against Canada, but I think it's better to have it happen and take the pressure off them. And then the boat selection, it's not
pricey.
It is pricey, but if you look at the history, it was way pricier back in the day when they were building custom boats and all that type of thing.
But we remember when the Canada's Cup went to Morrissey in '94 when Wally won it. there was 14 boats or 12 boats or something, right? I mean, there was great participation, and I mean, is that the way to go? Or let me ask you, before you even answer that. You know, we watched the New York Yacht Club do something really special last year. They started this invitational concept, and I think they tapped into something that no one's tapped into in years, which is nobody has anything loyal to sail for anymore. No one has a team anymore. There's no nationality anymore. They tapped into the club team mentality, and clubs are raising 50 grand for a bunch of random sailors to go compete in sonars for the right to compete in swan shitters, whatever it was. Okay, is that sort of a model that could work for the Canada's Cup, where you give these clubs the impetus to come in and maybe qualify in a cheaper boat to possibly work toward a big boat competition?
Yeah, I think that's an outstanding event, and I haven't been to it yet. I've heard about. I mean, it's a little bit selective in terms of they're inviting teams to get there. Like, we wouldn't get an invitation. If you look at this club, you know, you've got a Melgus 32 national champion, you have a 20 champion, you have the KISS kids that are, you know, world champions, and this club doesn't even get it. So there's a selective basis in an event like that, and everything's going to have a compromise. But I think
that maybe if you just open it up to the Great Lakes, I mean, I think maybe there's got to be something to ignite the clubs, and there's nothing right now, right?
They started that from scratch. This does somehow you got to modify it and embrace the history of the past, and that's the hardest thing to do.
That's the identity crisis that we've talked about with respect to this club before.
And the boats, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think there was anywhere near 12 or 14 boats when they had the Morseys. The only thing I heard about the Morseys, it was too small. It lost its grand, you know, attachment to the history and big enough. So I would love to switch it to another boat, but right now, to me, I go, guys, what's the other obvious choice? You know, I have a Melgus 32, but it's the
problem with Far 40s is if you're doing it within the rules, you can spend a lot of money and make the boat faster. You know, you can spend a lot of money on bottoms. You can spend a lot of money on things which that in a 32, for instance, you can't touch.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, one of the things that people go, well, shit, I got to go spend $50,000 on a bottom job to compete. That might be true, it may not be true, but that's the perception, you know?
I think that's the perception. That we didn't do that, I will tell you that. I mean, we bought a newer boat, and even my boat, which in practice, you know, it's a 10-year-old boat, there's a lot of times it was just as fast.
With the pros on board.
With the pros on board, but we have a good team, though, too. And so I think you can be competitive. The 40... It's a good match racing boat. They're less expensive than a 32.
There's a lot of them out there now.
And it's big enough and all those type of things. Would it be?
You probably get a Far 40 with a boatload of sales for 200 grand now, right?
Oh yeah, I'd be able to sell mine for that at this point. But yeah, I mean, then you get 150, 200. You get a great boat for 200,000. Yeah. So that's a hard call. There is no obvious choice. So if this is working and it's the right size boat and barrier of entry, great. I mean, if there was a Melgus 40. I think that's the perfect Canada's Cup boat.
Soto 40? What about the Soto 40? You like poles?
Yeah, I think a Melgus 40 might be a little bit more interesting, but you know.
You listening, Andy?
We could do it in old TP52s, or you know, I'd love to do it in. You
get TP52 for about $350 right now.
Do it in a Z86 if anybody wants to show.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, we have a good one for that. So, but that is the hardest question. But I think, you know, one thing is you pick it. You got to get continuity of somebody challenging, because again, if somebody doesn't challenge and can't agree to terms, I mean, the best thing that can happen out of this event, whoever wins, is to walk out of here with, we're doing this thing in 2, 3, 4 years, and this is the place, whoever wins, and this is the boat we're doing it at, so that people can look forward, plan, and build, and then you can get other people say, hey, we want to point towards this event, and that's a goal. When you throw it together short-sighted, you don't have trials, you don't give to other teams to work towards it, it just shoots the event in the foot.
Final question, I think, here, because I've taken enough of your time, but I guess one of my hesitations for even getting involved with the Cup this time around, and one of the reasons we were never able to set something up for live video, which we could have done great, and would have loved to do it, and hopefully next time we'll do it. But one of the hesitations was, you know, last time we all put in all this effort, and then, you know, and again in 2009, 10, we try, you know, and then to have the Royal Canadian Yacht Club step up and kind of just. They kind of shit on it, you know, and I'm not asking you to speak out about that, but I guess the problem is this, is that when I spoke to some of my friends at the RCYC, they said, look, in our opinion, the Cup deed is not really valid anyways, so we can sort of do what we want, you know. What's the sort of, I mean, how do you try and build momentum for an event like this when you're not sure about what the holder of the Cup wants?
I think that, you know, that is absolutely key and essential for going forward. You have got to get that party to be willing to come in and work with others to say, how do we make this thing bigger and be serious about it. There's a little meeting before the 2007 went up there, and really nothing came out of it, and you saw what came here. It was supposed to happen a couple of years after that, and it didn't happen. It all comes down to, you know, people in clubs can say things and offers can say things, but if you don't have somebody that's willing to come in and get behind the challenge, nothing's going to happen. So yeah, I just think if you look at the history and get those people to sit down and say, how can we take this great history and go forward with it more and come in with an open mind? I mean, worst problems have been solved all the time. That's the neat thing about West Michigan. Things get done, and the key is for them to sit down with everybody else and say, hey, let's take this thing further, but let's get on it now and let's agree on things and agree together. Not everybody's going to get everything they want, but
in your opinion, is there enough money and enough talent on the Great Lakes to have this be a vibrant 5 or 7 or 9 boat event every 3 years?
7 or 9, no, but I think, you know, this is the first time that we've had trials. That's a step up. And there would have been another boat here. Flash Gordon would have been here if there wasn't, I think, a close family wedding over in Palma. So you'd have had at least 2 other boats. Was really, we bent over backwards to try to get a team from Bayview here. Of course, they have a great history, but this is the 4th one they've been absent. So was a little bit disappointed in that. And I only say that just because a lot of people will criticize, but then not be there.
Look, they didn't, like, they had the chance to step up, and they didn't step up. Period.
It's so neat to see John Barber here. I mean, if John Barber was in charge, it'd be a great team there every 3 years. Sure. So, and Bayview's got some great sailors at it. It's disappointing that they're not here.
Weak, Bayview, weak.
But with that said, I think you could easily have a 4 or 5. Campaign, and that's a huge step up from where it's been, and I think there's going to be some pretty good momentum out of this event, and you can't let it languish. That's where you got to grab it now and go forward, and it's going to take a few people sitting around the table to make that happen, and it shouldn't.
All right, well, guys, there's no live video, there's not much live stuff, but there is blogging and there is updates. Check them out, Canada's Cup 2011.us, and that's it. Bob Hughes, hopefully he wins this one, and
thanks, Alan.
Good luck, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.